Einen wunderschönen guten Abend, meine Damen und Herren. Heute live aus Seattle, London und Berlin. Unsere Runde der CRM-Conversations. Wir haben weder Kosten noch Mühen gescheut, wieder Sie mit den Überraschungen dieser Woche begeistern zu dürfen. Und wie Sie es schon gewohnt sind, werde ich dann wegen auch der grundsätzlichen Herausforderung, dass wir, obwohl unser Gast Deutsch hervorragend versteht und auch die Begrüßung sicherlich in Deutsch hinkommt, wir lieber für die allgemeine Konversationsrunde uns in der englischen Sprache bewegen. Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to welcome you for this evening special event, the evening before the election in the United States. We have the honor and pleasure to have a special guest from London. Raj is working with Emarsys, which have been lately be bought already, or there are the negotiations in the finalization stages that they will be a part of SAP. And we were very lucky to hear a lot of positive evaluations, a lot of positive words, a lot of positive perspectives from Esteban Kolsky, from Bob Stutz, and from Adrian Nash. And while I shut down my friendly telephones, which make funny noises, I'm looking forward that Raj is so kind to introduce himself and tell us a bit about himself, and that we have a little adventure for more than one of an hour in advance of us.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Ralf and Thomas. It's a pleasure to be here. We've had a few interactions before, and it's always fun and interesting ones whenever we have those interactions. So just a little bit about myself. My name is Raj. I run AI for Emarsys. I've been with Emarsys for 5 years. So one of my main role within Emarsys is to come up with anything and everything to do with innovation, pushing the boundaries to the limits. And my background is firmly in the CRM space, specializing in marketing. Been doing this for just under 15 years. Sounds awfully long, but I do it with passion. I love it. I love doing this. So it's one of those interesting topics where I just don't do it as a job, but I also do it as my personal interest. I've got things happening on the side, which I just do on the side. So it's going to be an interesting conversation. I can speak for hours and hours and hours. So as long as we restrict it to some time, we'll be okay. So today, hopefully, I can also, come from not just from the Emarsys angle, but also my perspective on what I see in the outside world. Simply because of the fact, throughout my career, I worked with small ESPs where I was a consultant for them. I worked with ExactTarget back in the days where I was one of the first few employees when ExactTarget came to London. So I know their co-founders really well. I know the ethos really well, and that got acquired into Salesforce. Then I was one of the first few guys who worked for Eloqua when they moved to Europe. So I know their founding members really well. And then again, working with Emarsys, again, the founding members are more than a family to me. So you can see a pattern here. I like working with the co-founders. I like working with the people who make a difference. So that's one of my majority of the role is to make a difference, whether it's AI or otherwise. So I'm looking forward to today's conversation.
Cool.
Same here.
Thomas, would you like to give us a hint about how you are today in your new environment?
Still struggling with technology, it seemed, when we started this off. So, well, as you can all see, I have a different backset, which is again a live backset. It has one different picture in contrast to many different pictures on a concrete wall. So, welcome from Seattle, or to be precise, from Sammamish, which is, well, effectively a suburb of Redmond, actually. Yeah, came here last Saturday, still slightly jet-lagged and more than excited to continue from here.
Yeah, I should have said it's sleepless in Seattle, but you said jet lag, but it's okay.
Yeah. And it's different reasons, yeah. And I will stay sleepless for some while because I still got business in Germany and with Germany, and those, well, we bloody bastards.
Suddenly you become Scottish, which is interesting.
I'm 9 hours ahead of me. And if they want to do halfway decent working times in their afternoons, then it might become something that is not so decent for me. Like Thursday morning, I got a first meeting at 3:30 a.m.
Well, this is how to start a lovely day, and the special guests which are listening to us.
I'll see.
Our dear friend Raymond Gerber from Thunderhead, joining in with some comments and the natural question, you are in Seattle? This we answered already.
Yeah, the answer is
yes.
I am since last Saturday.
Yeah.
And noon.
We were very happy that in the conversation with Esteban and Bob, we could find out also that due to your expertise, Raj, in special, knowing a lot of the companies in their early stages and working very close to the founders, that you have always the spirit of the innovation-driven human being and enthusiast as well. And we learned in our pre-discussions very fast that you burn for what you work. And you are not only from my background working for Swiss, you're not only a talented human being who has the capability of being teaming up and working as a Swiss knife with all your knowledge and capabilities, but that you have also an in-depth knowledge in AI, which is something which makes us really, really curious. Mm-hmm. Because we jump in so many conversations where people quote, we have AI. That did Raymond from Thunderhead and made some clear positionings. And we are always confronted with some customers which are in a certain disbelief that is real AI. Would it be fair enough to start with that challenge a bit in what is in Emarsys and what did you put in which makes it so special? And we are also very curious why Emarsys.
I thought you'll start with an easier question, but it wasn't, is it? It's just like start with the bang. Let's start with the depth one.
In the U.S. elections, so what?
So before I do that, a little bit more background about myself. I'm an engineer by trade. I did robotics and neural networks. Yeah. So when I did my post graduations in that. And in the uni, basically, when somebody asks me what I do, I just say, I do engineering, because engineering was already like nerdy enough where people saw you like, you're a nerd sort of thing. And if I even told them that I did like robotics and neural networks and artificial intelligence, you would basically be shunned out. They wouldn't even let you in the students' union. It's like, that was the state of affairs when I did my studies. But now it's so cool. Everybody wants to know about AI. Yeah. And what is interesting, and in a way it's annoying, is every single person wants to put AI in their title one way or the other. Just somewhere they just want to put AI so that it's cool enough for them, right? Mm-hmm. And in my personal opinion, apart from what I do at Emarsys and everything, Emarsys like a AI has become a fad. It's become more of a hype. It's become more than a hype. It's just become like the thing which you want to stick on to make it sell. It's becoming like the best word to describe it as a snake oil. where it's not real oil but snake oil, but they think it's going to make it go away and things like that. Yeah. That's my personal opinion on it, right? So every single provider, whether they're in marketing automation or CRM or whoever it is, they just want to put the word AI to make it sound cool, right? Mm-hmm. So it's good for people like me who back in the days who were nerds kind of get a second chance in life where we don't have to be called the nerds again. At least we get to come onto the main stage and talk about AI as though it's such a big cool thing. So that's the personal opinion on it. But apart from that, here is the thought process behind it, right? So AI is a big bubble. If you think of the AI as a big bubble, there are several elements which comes into it. Things like machine learning is one of the elements, and then you have the deep learning which comes into it. And then if you look at the bigger sphere of AI in its true sense means that whatever a human can do, you expect the machine to do, right? That's what, in a purest sense, AI is. So if you have a system which does part of what a human can do, it's not AI. Like, for example, if you have a machine learning algorithm, even though it's a subset of AI, you can't call just a machine learning algorithm and an output of a machine learning algorithm to be AI. It is just part of what we call as predictive sciences or, data science or whatever you want to call it. But the reality is, when you combine, machine learning with another algorithm which does a superior thinking and gives the entire solution on its whole, like a human would do, that would be called as an AI, right? But in all honesty, there aren't many applications out there which is true AI, like the full-fledged AI. There isn't any. Let's just get that out of the way, right? And for it to come from a person like me who has AI in the title, it's saying something, right? Because AI in its purest form, what it was intended to do, like, for example, one of the PhD projects which I was doing was around things like artificial nose, where back in the days you can sniff out harmful chemicals and whatnot, but that was just one part of it. But basically what the artificial nose does is it actually informs another system which takes another action, shuts the valves down and informs the police, and it's like a whole new different system, right? That we can call as an AI system because that's exactly what a human would do. The moment a human detects a danger, they will take countermeasures and they'll shut things down and make it happen. So there's a whole new chain of events which needs to happen, and that in its entirety is an AI application, right? And that's where the differentiation comes in. The problem is that you have every Tom, Dick, and Harry does a machine learning algorithm, which, by the way, is free, right? I can promise you, I can let anyone in the world to do a machine learning algorithm in less than 2 minutes. It's that accessible. Wow. It's that accessible. It's incredibly powerful and it's incredibly accessible. And it's so easy. Like, for example, you can have a Excel sheet with 10, 15 columns in it. Go to Google, right? There are pre-trained machine learning algorithms. You put your credit card in, they'll give you $300 credit, right? And then within seconds, you'll be churning out models. So would you call yourself an AI scientist? Probably not, no. Right?
A user.
That's exactly the point. So the problem is many of the people out there who call themselves as, that they implement AI and they should do AI and whatnot are probably doing something closely along the lines of machine learning. And that's pretty much it, right? So they do something with the data, they do some sort of analysis, and they just present it back to someone. And they call themselves AI just because of the technicality which says machine learning is a subset of AI, right? So yeah, that's the in-depth answer, and that's my opinion on it. So just because somebody's doing like machine learning algorithms and a few analysis and a few predictive analysis doesn't make it quite exactly AI.
But then the people you are just used as an example, even for machine learning, they are just using something that somebody else already created. Yeah. So the technology is there. What I do is just dumping my data, and so at best I'm a bit of a data scientist, which is put it derogatively, a new word for statistics person. So I can do some statistics to pull out the right rows of my Excel that I can dump into the pre-built system, which then builds me a model. So shouldn't that also be the way?
Yeah, I mean, I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm just trying to differentiate what AI is and what the AI was intended for. The term AI was intended for, and how it's used now in the industry. I'm not saying AI shouldn't be accessible, because I truly think it should be simplified and made accessible to everyone. And I also like the philosophy of democratizing AI, that everybody should be able to use it, right? I'm not talking about the user experience of it. I'm just talking about the misuse of the term AI in every single thing. Like, you go on LinkedIn, you go on every single, marketing brochure. I don't think there's any marketing brochure at the moment without the word AI in it. It's there. It's there in everyone's face, right? It's overused. It's used as a snake oil. It's just ridiculous, right? That's what I'm trying to get to.
Yeah. Don't you think that's or do you think that it's a hen-egg problem? Because if you don't put it, nobody will look at you. If you put it, it's snake oil.
That's actually a very good one. But interestingly enough, there needs to be some sort of a standard that we need to put into play.
Fully agreed there.
and it needs to be done,
or something which describes precisely what is AI and what is something else.
That's exactly right. I mean, we need to have some sort of a labeling mechanism for even the vendors to go and say, hey, what we're doing is, predictive sciences, or we're doing predictive analytics, or, we're doing a full-fledged, full feedback loop AI, which is like the holy grail of AI, right? Since there is no differentiation at the moment, everybody just uses the same words, which actually means that when a provider has the highest level of AI and a provider probably has nothing in AI, are pretty much the same. And the problem with that is it's mistrust. It's like, when people see it, they're like, AI, just go away. I don't want to even hear about AI, just go away, because they just probably would have used one thing or the other, and they think it's exactly the same and whatnot. But, the positive news here, gentlemen, is we are in the nascent phase of AI. It's just about starting out, right? It hasn't reached its peak. It hasn't reached its pinnacle of evolution, I would say. It's still coming up. It's still, catching up into it. Even now, I have the CIOs and CTOs, in the LinkedIn connections come back and say, so what is this AI? Can I chat to you about it? Even though they're not completely remotely linked to anything what we do, I have interesting conversation with businesses where they organize like a business evening where we just talk about what AI really means to their business, more than anything else. And for me, that I enjoy because of the fact I can really differentiate the myths from what the reality is, by saying, okay, just because you're doing some analysis, like Thomas, you said, it's just because you're doing some statistics doesn't mean you're doing AI, right? For you to build true AI, it's a humongous effort. It's probably the pinnacle of the artificial intelligence sciences. And I don't think anybody's even truly tapped into it. And that's the best part for me, because the investments are being made. And very soon people are going to jump in, people like you guys are going to go, you know what, I know what to do. I'm just going to start differentiating out for my customers, right? When customers come to you and say, hey, can you help me separate things out? You're going to go, okay, this is just machine learning. This is just predictive analytics. This is true AI, right? So, and I think the second phase has come where we have to start differentiating things. And now is the time to do it, right? And I don't think it's particularly bad. Then hopefully we can start labeling snake oil as snake oil and the real olive oil as real olive oil. if that's what we're trying to do, so at least that's my opinion on it, and not just the opinion, because when I work with customers, I kind of see that in real life, every day to day, and for me, I like the no nonsense approach when you do things. I can't go to a customer and face them and say, and wave my hand saying, we're going to do some real cool AI for you, right? I'm going to go, no, we're going to do machine learning for you, and there is a part you need to come and play, because machine learning is only one part of the equation. Like, for example, you can use a machine learning algorithm, and you can say, this is going to happen, and that's it. You take your hands off, and then you expect the user to do something at the back of it.
Yeah.
Right. It's always the case with machine learning, but then now users are using it, and the issue now is that the users don't really understand what to do with it. Majority of the time, I would say 98% of the time, when you tell them this is going to happen, they don't know what to do with it. Like in typical marketing sense, and Thomas, I think we spoke about this the other day. Customers are used to doing everything in bulk in marketing. Everything is like, I want to do one-to-many marketing, even segmentation down to the level of thousands boggles somebody's mind, because they're like, I don't want to do it. When you start giving information about an individual using machine learning, it just completely blows their mind. They're like, I don't know what to do with it. It's like, we can pretty much say, I can individually predict like a million outcomes if you have a million customers, and they're going to go, so what am I going to do with it? And then they're back in the same hole again, where they put them into 3 or 4 different segments and treat them with same content. So, the problem is multitude levels. It's not just one level. The problem comes at different levels. So, like the chicken and egg thing you said, there are 2 sides to the story. One is, can we do true AI? Well, that's one thing. The second thing is, even if we do AI, are people ready for it? Right? In my personal opinion, when I work with customers, they're not ready for it yet.
They've not yet understood it properly, where they can make a benefit out of it.
Absolutely right. Yeah.
And if there is a benefit, they probably are not happy to accept it, because they don't understand. Well, that's one of the challenges with machine learning and AI, right? There are explanation capabilities missing. So the thing comes to a result. This result, in all likelihood, is pretty good to very good, but I don't believe it, because I don't understand how the system came there.
Yeah.
So I do not understand a clue about the black box mechanism, and this I have more fear than fun about it.
Yeah.
And to pay respect to our dedicated earlier guests, which were happy buying some additional AI competence for their solution, our colleagues and valued friends from Sugar, or as Ray is paying attention of what we are discussing right now, that he has fair amount of knowledge in a very dedicated, very unique way of doing some stuff, where in the same quadrant, if you look into it, if it's Forrester or Gardner, surprisingly, there is our friends from Thunderhead in the upper right corner, and surprising number 2 is there is also Emarsys as one of the coming up feature and function inheriting bits and pieces. And this makes it so unique, as we played it in our conversation with Bob and Esteban, that we said, hey, that would be really sexy if we see that these 2 fantastic additive functionalities with their benefits built in would come to your suite and give them an extra kick, as for instance Salesforce, by all that you have there, your family as well, is losing some of their competitive advantages because they bought a lesser smart product and integrated that into their suite and proclaim that they are as sexy as before, which I honestly doubt.
Yeah.
Analyst opinion.
Yeah, I mean, in all honesty, I've since I closely follow Salesforce, and I know for a while Thunderhead was playing with Salesforce back in Bob days were there, and the services, the head of services, also a very close friend of mine there in Salesforce. They had great reviews about what Thunderhead did in the back end, and when Thunderhead was used for not as a replacement, but like an alternative to their automation suite and all the rest of that. So that was an interesting one. And going back to the one you were talking about, the RTIM wave, speaking with Rusty, the way he sees RTIM, or the Gartners call it customer experience management, customer experience journey management, whatever they want to call it. So essentially, what's interesting is, whether it's Forrester or Gartner or IDC, everybody wants to call it something. But if you think about it, there are only two things in play, right? You have the front of the office stuff, like the channels, which is what we play in. We like connecting to the channels because playing in the channel is not as simple as everybody believes it to be. It's not like, oh yeah, we can do an API, connect into something and fire out and forget it. It's not, because there's a lot of optimization you need to do just within the channels, right? And when you're doing omni-channel, the problem gets multitude of problems, because let's say you have a backup problem in your mail sendings, and you need to optimize through other channels. And if you have a problem with that, you need to optimize for the other channels too. So where I see the interplay between a back office connection systems, like what Thunderhead does and Pega does and what SaaS do, is for a CX play, that's like heavily important. So if you think of these as two layers, where you have the back office systems coming into play and the channels coming in the bottom, right? So a product like Emarsys will be 100% suited for the front office, right? When you're connecting live into the system and playing on the channel side of things. But when you're orchestrating in the back end and connecting multiple back end systems, you need somebody like who does the RTIM stuff, who can do that. But where the CX has to lead eventually is a close interplay between two platforms like that. And that's one of the reasons why, a couple of years ago, we were pushing into that space. We were saying, okay, can we develop a platform which will start not just working with the channels, but also working with other systems in play? It could be a service system like Zendesk, because our majority of the use cases come from Zendesk and Emarsys playing together, or Salesforce and Emarsys playing together, or something like a service cloud playing together, right? But then very soon we realized that it's not just two different platforms playing, it is also 3 or 4 different teams playing together. There's like one services team playing, and then there's a marketing team playing, and then there's a commerce team playing. And it gets so complex when you have different platforms and different silos and different organizations. I think from a principal perspective, we need to have a simplified system, which what I call as a unified system, which can work across front end and back end, which can span across multiple teams. And as of recently, we never had a system which can play that, right? But now, like you said, there's a high possibility to actually link the front end and the back end to make it work.
This is a point, Raj, where I would like to jump into Ray's comment, which comes to the right point just now, such as it is that we deliver a benefit to help them to do their job over the different departments and silos. And it's not so much how does it work, if I understand the remark proactively positive, and then they can do their job better over all the departments and deliver the benefit which is intended and which is the pain point right now, such as when they know they have tools to play together with, then they can, as a team, deliver, and no longer as little kingdoms which are not communicating. It's a bit like European Union. Yeah, we have a great idea, but we are lousy in performing the benefit to our democratic citizens.
I think there are two things in play here, and I like what Ray is saying here about the explainability, right? And this is a controversial statement coming from the guy who actually runs AI, right?
Yeah, it's good that we have him in here. I love it.
Majority of the data scientists who run AI applications, they probably don't understand them either, right? So it's not about, they understand how the algorithm is going to output stuff, right? When an algorithm performs, you get a predicted output, and then you go, yeah, okay, I get it. Now, if you ask them to backtrace it and give an output of how that decision was arrived, it gets far more difficult than actually computing the answer.
Yeah.
Like when you go deeper and deeper into algorithms, like, if you go into the deep learning algorithms, sometimes it becomes almost impossible to even compute how the computer actually computed the algorithm to get that output.
Yeah.
And so it's mind-boggling sometimes why it actually happens. We can give the equations which was used to arrive at that output, but we can't figure out how that output was put together, right? So explainability is a tough one in AI, and that's one of the reasons why the adoption of AI is struggling, in all honesty. And that's where the reality is. And I've seen quite a lot of methodologies used nowadays to explain how AI works, and there's quite a lot of what should I say, hand waving to make it work. But the reality is, when you start digging into it, when you start moving one layer down, then you realize actually even the person who's explaining the AI part actually don't understand how that actually came to play. And that's another way to look at it. So part of the problem with adoption is the explainability of it.
Yes.
And that is not going to go away any sooner until we figure out a better way to educate the customers. So coming back to the point saying, do we have to get the users educated? The answer is yes, simply because of the fact, if they don't understand how the data interplays into their day-to-day job, they simply won't be able to get why the decision was arrived, right? And on the flip side of it, when a decision is arrived or when an output is given, they don't know what to do with it. That's where the problem is, right? Or we could take a third approach, and where we go, everything is a black box. Don't worry. Whatever the output I'm going to give you, you just do it, right? Which is exactly what is happening now. Trust me. Like we say, just don't question it. Just do it. Go away. Go and do it.
Yeah. So
right.
Then at some point in time, we come to the situation that the system must be able to explain itself, because right now, legal portions apart or legal problems apart, it is not the system that can decide or should decide. Still, I follow a very strong recommendation, a prescription, basically. Yeah? So, and if I follow this prescription and be accountable for it, and am accountable for it, then it's probably a good idea if I know why I am doing that. Yeah? Means I need to be able to ask the system to tell me why it came to that conclusion. If it came to a conclusion, it came to a recommendation, a next best action, which is the simple thing, right? So if I am accountable for it, I need to be able to ask my advisor for a reason why it came there. So how far are we away from that? It's totally off Emarsys now, but why are we good actually? Why are we apart from it?
And let me give you an example of what we did at Emarsys, and hopefully, that will give you an idea behind it. So, a few years ago, I would say 3.5, 4 years ago now, we had a customer who came to us and said, we want to make sure that we want to give the right incentives to the right people, right? So we had to put together a few solutions to make it work. Number one, we had to figure out, who's going to buy, who's not going to buy, who's definitely not going to buy, right? That's the first thing we did, right? That's the first thing. Second thing is we also had to figure out what is the kind of incentive that you can give to a certain person for them to buy. And the third one is, when do you give this incentive to make them buy? Start of the cycle, after the cycle, after they've abandoned the cart, whatever it is, right? So now, if you just take the 3 by 3 by 3, that's like, 3 into 3 into 3 combinations. It's like already quite a lot of permutations and combinations, yeah? So we created this solution called incentive recommendations, which is basically you load all the incentives you have, which is starting from 5%, 10%, 15%, to 20%, to 25% incentives. Yeah, and then you basically set like a parameter within the system, saying, okay, this month I want to go aggressive, which means try and give as many incentives as you can or whatever it is, but try and get me the conversions going, right? And then you can also have another setting which actually says, this month, I just want to maintain a profit. So it's mainly about the margin, not just about the conversion, but also the margin, right? So what we realized is you have like 3 different entities working together. You have an algorithm, which is mainly finding out who's going to buy or not. One algorithm, which is finding out who's going to buy if you give a certain algorithm. The other one is when somebody will buy. Right. And then wrapping all of this together, we put together an algorithm which basically does personalization on the go, right? Whether we give it on the website, whether we give it on the email, or whether we give it elsewhere. So as you can already see, there's like 4 algorithms interplaying with each other to make it work, right? What is interesting is all of this is bound by one golden rule, like Lord of the Rings, which is set by the
one rule to govern them all, yeah.
Exactly, one ring to rule them all, because the big setting which actually says, okay, whether I want profitability, or whether I want conversion, or whether I want outright just sell the stock, right? Funny enough, we put the algorithms on rails. Essentially, it's bound by these settings. If you set the settings, that basically indicates the parameters, and the parameters will take care of itself, and then the incentives will be issued. Right? And funny enough, whenever we went to a customer who wanted to issue it, they always went to the profitability. They went and put like, I want maximum profitability, okay? And then they also want maximum conversion, okay? We were trying to explain to the customer saying, well, it kind of will work, but it also won't work because you want maximum profitability, you want maximum conversion, which means you're only going to have a very small set of customers who's going to fit in that bracket, which means there's only like small set of customers who will be issued with the incentives, right? And they were like, no, that's not true, because that's not how it works, because we've seen a lot of profitability, but, so then we tried explaining to them saying, you have different sets of people who will convert at different points in time. So you need to give it time for it to learn. And, it needs to learn how your business works over a period of time. It needs to learn how seasonalities work over a period of time. Yeah. And again, the problem is customers will deploy it with the expectation saying, this AI magical thing is going to solve their business problems just by setting everything to high profitability and setting everything to higher conversion, and everything, yes, it's gone. It's all going to happen, right? And they'll run it for 2-3 months, and they go, oh no, my conversions are low, and my profitability is not that high, and I'm paying a lot of money for AI, and I don't want it. It's like that's not how it works. You need to let it learn the same way you would have learned. Going back to the original statement, like AI is all about how humans learn things, right? Without being like a father to a child, you need the algorithms to flourish. You need the algorithms to learn, make mistakes, and then it'll come together. It's no different to how we all learn. If it's different to how we all learn, then it's not artificial intelligence. and that's the point, and that for us to convey to the customer, it takes time. And here is the problem, right? When a customer deploys it in 1 quarter and they don't see any result, they'll be like, no, we don't believe in this. It's not going to work, right? And then they'll say, you know what? You tell me who's going to convert, and I will do the incentive strategy for it. And then you're back to machine learning again, right? You're not in the true AI world. You've suddenly taken all the components out, and then you are in the world of just giving pure segments to the customers. So, and going back to the original point you were saying, is it a chicken and egg thing? The answer is, it's a business thing. It's a business transformation process, right? And that's the reason why I'm saying, sorry, please?
No agricultural problem.
Exactly. and it's nothing to
talk about it, but what we are facing, Thomas only put a thing needle on it, is that we have legislative challenges, ethic commissions, which are talking about very much how we can see through the black box, not understanding it, and other people which are very much in the depth of programming. And if you analyze the people which are programming, and for instance, we do have algorithms and decision supporting systems which give us a hint which should be the next Supreme Court judge. And if male are programming this, such is one of the broadcast series on AI in Germany, they said if male people are programming some stuff, male will be preferred. This is simple logic.
Yeah.
And the next thing is an artificial intelligence-driven car. And it has 50 million lines of code. 2% is crap. Now imagine the responsibility if you have 2% of crap in your code. And this comes to a certain, let's say, things to think about. Yeah. And I'm very, very optimistic that with a certain kind of realism, we will have a lot of benefits and we have a bright future in front of us and make things happen in what area it is. There is, for me, no question, but I'm not one of the disbelievers. I'm not one of the alu hat wearing chaps. Yeah? And I'm more a positive and optimistic thinker. And I see all benefits, such as being a sales rep. I now know where my next opportunity is. I now know which could be the next best action. And I have a lot of more fun and free time for my customer. Yeah. And the other thing is I can orchestrate for my users, like it's in your systems built-in and in Raise, that the defined users do have a more one-on-one experience on their journeys. Yeah? And one of the questions we discussed, we wanted to talk about is that there is a lot of hype in the marketing automation arena. And some people, because we stepped right into it in starting our conversation, and you were not too happy that we didn't go for the weather question or what is the
I don't think we should talk about weather. It's rubbish all the time here. So
Seattle and London are a bit like twins. Yeah, you have a fair amount of shared rain weather. Yeah, and you fight about the sunny days, and this is very much in common. Yeah. Even divided by some water, you have the same challenge. Yeah. Now back to our very interesting aspect. Our question was, what is, for instance, your view in the marketing automation tools, and where are they progressing to? If we look into our crystal balls for the next 5 years, what's going to happen from your perspective?
So what's going to happen and what I would like to see happen, they're two different things, right? And let's just start with what I would like to happen. So if you think about marketing, still marketing is in a silo. And what's happened with COVID is it's only put more pressure on the marketing guys, because demand generation has become like a huge thing. Yeah. And what I see is more and more marketers are put under pressure, and it's like going to a gym and lifting weights. The more weight you lift, you actually lose form. You don't lift it correctly, and then you get hurt, and something goes bad and whatnot. So since the pressure is put on marketing, which it shouldn't be, because it should be as a business-wide entity. The demand generation is more of a business-wide problem, like they rightly say, even in B2B, saying, oh, demand generation is just not lead generation. Everybody should be generating leads. Everybody should be working for the company. Everybody's a front-ended business, right? So where I would like to see all of this happen is you have marketing, and then you have the customer services, and you have the CRM entities, if you want to call them as two different things, and then all the other entities come together into one single way of operation, right? Where you have, one single entity which can interplay with each other, where, a customer is not happy, which means, don't do this, or if this is happening, do this for the customer, etc. Right? Mm-hmm. And that universal interplay is not there, which is where the problem starts straight away. Right. Mm-hmm. And you asked me about AI before, and we jumped into the interplay of, what the explainability and all the rest of it is. Yeah. When you pick up your iPhone, there are hundreds and thousands of AI applications, which you and I don't give a shit about. Right. But it's making our life easy. Right. Yep. We don't ask for any explanation. We just use it. Right. So AI's true implications and operations will come there when you have the interplay between those different platforms, organizing the data, optimizing the data, making it work, making it all come together, making it when I say user, I'm actually talking about the business users. Mm-hmm. Life so much more easier, so that they're not just working only in marketing, but they're also working across the board. They can see a customer across the board. Right, not just in the marketing silo as such. So marketing should blend into the other ways of doing things, so from front office to back office. And that's one of the reasons why we wanted to pick up this whole thing around how do we start integrating back end to front end, which is the marketing part, right? And that's why, we even spoke to Rusty a couple of years ago saying, what do we do? And he said, oh yeah, I've got this thing called RTIM, and then we started doing it, and which is great, because we only explored like a few use cases for our customers, and those few use cases made a huge difference for them, like massive, stupidly massive difference for them, like just by connecting a few Zendesk queues into how the campaigns are done. Mm-hmm. Right, things like connecting into the PIM systems in the back end, where you talk about stocks and making it available in the front end. Simple things like that made so much of difference, where marketing wouldn't have even thought about that in advance, right? Mm-hmm. And automating the entire process. When I say that, everybody's going to go, no, we've been doing this campaign for ages. Yes, they have been doing it, but they have to export the data from somewhere, put it in here, and make it work, and do all of that stuff. But I don't think it should be necessary, right? Every single interaction needs to work between these two different things. And now we have like fantastic technology, like data streaming technologies with Google, where you have things like PubSub, where you can subscribe to a data stream, or you can publish into a data stream. And that can be used by any system in the world. It doesn't matter whether it's a marketing automation system or a services system or whatever it is, right? So for me, the evolution of just not using channels as just for marketing, and back office operations just for back office operations, the blend of both of them is really, really exciting for me. And that now we have the technical capabilities for that to happen, and that will happen, right? That's the first thing. The second thing is, for me, this year has been very tough because not just because we see our customers, some of the customers are my friends, they kind of like don't have businesses anymore, which is quite heart-wrenching sometimes, right? And I have a lot of my friends and colleagues who work in the travel sector. Some of the biggest airlines are our customers, and I have like really good relationship with them. And they're struggling. They absolutely don't know what to do with it. Yeah. And where I'm going with this is not just marketing, but every single system out there. The way we think about delivering value should be different. It's not just about, okay, we're giving you campaigns, we're giving you a platform, we're giving you access, we'll charge you per seat, or we charge you per message, or it shouldn't be like that. It should be like, okay, what is the value we bring to your table? Like, are we making it so that we will get you up and running within 2 weeks? Or are we going to give you value where 50% of your revenue is done by us, for example, right? So that for me is something which needs to rapidly change. And to testimony to that, Haggai, who's the co-founder of Emarsys, he's like a massive proponent of that. And that's the reason why I like working with him, where a few years ago, we decided saying, listen, the biggest problem we have in the industry is adoption, right? Yeah. Because we were developing stuff at a breakneck pace. We were developing things left, right, and center, like feature after feature after feature after feature. And then we were doing package after package after package. It's like ridiculous. Like in our AI labs, every week we'll release a feature. And the problem is it's becoming what I call as a heavy bag. You've just because you buy something, it's like a heavy bag you carry around and you don't use half of the shit you've just bought, which is crazy if you think about it, right? And when we were talking about it a few years, sorry,
and you even paid for it, so you bought nonsense, in so speaking, and the real benefit is not coming right through for the value of the money, and this would trouble me. It's
pretty much the same as Bob said 2 weeks ago.
But if you think about it, isn't that the norm? Like and this is the thing we at Emarsys did a few years ago, where we kind of figured it out because we think, openly speaking, every single provider out there, because I use majority of the platforms myself, I can't see a difference in the platform because the functionalities are the same, essentially, right? Maybe some of them have a green button, some of them have a blue button, some of them have a pink button. Doesn't mean
might differ if we could eat it and drink it, But
exactly.
We wouldn't starve and we wouldn't die of dehydration. So this certain, let's say, comparability, and for the one or the other industrial or sectorized usage, there may be the advantages in the details. And I believe, speaking as an analyst and a software selection specialist, it's exact now my knowledge that I am able to advise a customer and a manufacturer of software, a software vendor, where his intelligence, his esprit, and his knowledge should go to deliver a differentiating, unique proposition for the market where he can make his money out of.
And for me, the sustainability comes into play because we're missing that. We're missing that a lot. And what we did at Emarsys a few years ago kind of proved to us that that's a perfect way to go ahead. So what we did was we went for adoption, and we asked the customers saying, how can we help with adoption? The first thing they said was, don't give us services, just get it done for us. And so we took a whole bunch of stuff and we said, okay, these are the common things you can implement, so go ahead and implement it. We'll make it free, we'll make it accessible and whatnot. And what is also interesting is we also know that every 2 years a CMO changes. So when a CMO changes, the first thing they do is they change the color of the brand, they do something, and they buy another marketing platform. That's what they do, right? So, and they have to shift from Oracle or Salesforce or whatever to Emarsys to Salesforce to whatever it is, they do that. and they'll take another 8 months to implement it. I mean, you guys have done that. You know the transition process is pain. Yeah. It's painful. It's like giving birth. Not that we've given birth, but we know it's painful. I was there when my wife gave birth. I can see it's painful, right? So our main thing was if a customer can onboard straight away within the 2 months, get everything 80%, at least 80% running, that's great for us. And that's what we did. But what we didn't go to the next level, which is what we were planning for the next 5 years, is to think about, we still charge customers on consumption model. Oh, you do so many messages, or you do so many accounts, or so many people, or users, or whatever it is, right? Mm-hmm. But the evolution still hasn't come to play where what is the value we bring to that business?
Yeah,
that hasn't come about yet. I don't think it's not Emarsys thing. I don't think it's
no general problem
starting between you and Esteban, because he says, well, they are only consuming users, customers are consuming what, well, they are well educated, so they consume only what they need. Which will be quite an interesting discussion that I foresee. Probably we should invite Esteban and you for one session.
It would be a conversation about and value with the two of you, but also if you invite, for instance, a manufacturer of computers, which is not HP, but it starts with a D. And one of my former colleagues who is working in the global marketing department and is looking for a global CRM solution. This was the reason, if Ray is still with us, I contacted Andre and said, you will not believe who I have on the horn. And a large user of yours who is a big fan of the Blue Cloud and some products, and they bought in a very big deal a lot of your stuff, and now they are looking forward to change things. He was talking in a lot of marketing automation specific acronyms. Raj, I'm very honest, I could not follow him
there.
This was a different world, and I put it to the point. They said, thank you, Ray. See that you are there. And
can we bring him in?
Sorry?
Can we bring him in for a minute or two, if he agrees to?
Well, you start talking and I manage. Yeah.
Going back to this thing, like our co-founder and I, we were sitting the other day and we were saying, okay, how do we do this value thing, right? And he said, well, if you think about it, a lot of our customers actually use emails. Right, just they deploy a lot of emails, and we were saying, okay, what if we can price it based on how good their email is, right? What if we can say, okay, the more interactions you get, the less we will charge you. What if we can tell you the more placements you get, the less we'll charge you. The more like revenue you get, the collection, the conversions you get, the less we will charge you. Then they're not going to think about, oh, I want to send a lot of emails and have spams and bounces and hard bounces and soft bounces. Then they're suddenly thinking, okay, my incentive to get this right, my incentive to make sure the end consumer, like you and me, gets the right message is far higher.
Yeah.
Right. Currently, there is no incentive, there is no carrot or a stick. That's the problem. It's only
one way, and it's the vendor's way right now. So,
correct.
So wouldn't it already be just to get into? I know that it's hard to do value-based pricing or value-delivered-based pricing. Wouldn't it already be a possibility to start off with? Do not have, because we are talking value exchange. Do not have your value being received early. Or you as a vendor, value received early because you write an invoice right away, which I have to pay. And then I may, as a customer, I may or may not receive some value based on promises made and believed, based upon however good the implementation partner is, however good or not I did my own change management. So wouldn't that be a first start, doing the the value exchange, the transaction, not transaction based, but based upon, well, deferred payments, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's where the whole the value for business comes into play, right? Because if you think about the blue cloud we were talking about, and a lot of customers I know from the blue cloud, and also from the red cloud, and also from some of the colored cloud as well. The issue is they take more than 8-9 months to implement a single program, right? One, simply because of the fact there are too many people involved in the equation. There's the vendor, and they have to set it up, and it takes them magical 4 or 5 weeks to set it up for no reason, which I never understood, because it's just a whole bunch of automated system which you need to turn on. And then you have a whole bunch of onboarding which happens, and then we have partners come into play, and then they are the ones who are really working hard to get it online. And then the customers will have a kickoff campaign happen. And by the time anything really productive actually happens, anything which is really happening, you're already talking 6 months. And like you said, they've already paid half a year's worth of invoice.
Yeah, right.
Or even other, right?
Probably should have invited you earlier.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, we love our spontaneous audience.
Hello.
And it is a pleasure to have you with us, Raymond.
Hi, Raj. Nice to meet you. Hi,
Nice to meet you,
Ralf.
sir.
Hi, Thomas.
He's in a cooler setting than mine. Let's put it that way.
Well,
we already know that
let me
setting.
put it like that, Raj. Half of us seem to be in a bedroom, and half of us not.
If we draw a line like this, the right side has got the bedroom view, and we've got the office view. So.
Yeah.
Oh, Jesus. Yeah. So, Ray, how's life?
It's good. My son got married this weekend.
Oh, congratulations to you and him and his wife.
Congratulations.
Beautiful wedding. It was gorgeous. I'll send you guys some pictures. It was a beautiful wedding. So
Looking forward.
got back yesterday, and back in the swing of things today, working on AI ML stuff like I've been for the last 3 years. So it's interesting to hear what Raj is saying, and so where can I think that you guys were on a really good topic around the value exchange, and maybe Raj, I'm not sure if you've ever seen the Thunderhead Engagement 3.0 white paper. Written by Phil Venville. It might be really interesting for you to read to kind of see where we come from. So it's really about the value exchange, and then obviously I took that to a technology level to say how do you make every decision you make as a brand when the customer's connected. How do you make sure there's a value exchange, that there's enough value for, as Paul Greenberg says, you have to give the consumer enough reason to have the next interaction, but you also have to give the brand enough value to make sure that they actually want that interaction that might happen at a cost, because it might not result in monetary value, but it might, increase the relationship between the brand and the customer. It might drive that customer to become an advocate or to be a loyal customer. So it's just a very interesting, and obviously we have this concept of the exchange is circular, where it continues to expand and interact, pretty much like a journey, never really ends, it continues. So,
and it becomes even more important. I think we were talking about the first part of the equation, where we're talking about the brand and the vendor value exchange to start with. But the other side of the coin, or the other side of the equation, is the customer and the brand interaction, the value exchange there. Recently, there's a lot of talk around the zero-party data, and consumers owning their own data and kind of sharing with whomever they want. And interestingly enough, now we have the technology and the scale where consumers pretty much can own every single interaction they have as an individual cloud, like a personal cloud, if you will, right? And share it with whichever brand they want. And that's an amazing way to exchange a value, for example, right? And with GDPR coming into play, and obviously AI also is becoming even more hard to explain, if you will. If a customer has to give us enough data sets about them, they need something back. And then we could say, hey, listen, if you give us these kind of data sets, and here are the incentives we can give you back, right? And that part is completely untapped. We still don't have that, because whenever a customer gives a consent, they are only giving it to a specific singular brand. We don't have a common platform where a consumer goes and says, hey, I'm going to store Raj's data completely in one place, and then I can individually give information to different brands.
Is that the case for a VRM system, or whatever was the original definition of a VRM system?
Potentially, everything goes back to old school, right? Yeah. Whatever acronym there was. Yeah.
I mean, I think interesting on this topic, because I'm actually a part owner / investor in a company that focuses on that. Not that we've done a lot, because we're all full-time workers of different companies. But what we've run into, we've got prototypes exactly what you're talking now, but we're running into the big media companies, the Facebooks, the Googles, that say we own that data, we don't want to give up that data, and put you as the end consumer in charge of deciding who sees the data and when they see it. So I think philosophically it's correct. Technologically, I think we can get there pretty easy. I think to the point where the cookie will become the place where I store my data on my own device, not accessible by anybody else. So I know we're trying to get to a cookieless environment. I just think cookie will be replaced by, I think what Raj maybe call that a private cloud. So I have my own place where I decide to store my cloud data or my interactions.
Yeah.
I think what we need to get past is the objections of the big monolithic, media companies that will see that as the demise, of their revenue streams. So
Look at something like Brave. They built a browser that made it the other way around. So I got, as a user of this browser or surfing the internet, the model was that companies that place an ad pay me for looking at it. Because they are taking my resources, my attention. This is what they are taking. So, the problem with Brave is it doesn't take off, if it's still existing. So it's the same as these VRM systems. They don't take off because just of what Ray just said. They are harming existing business models of very strong players who would do everything to avoid that. Because it's bad for their revenue, second for their shareholders, because it's bad for their revenue. So that's why I have a hard time believing that something like that ever will take off.
It's interesting you should say this, Thomas. I mean, I've had a few brands where they will say, if you go check into their app, you give us special discounts completely in their app. Right. So, there are lots of fitness brands which I follow and I use where if you go to their app, you get special incentives there. And I will go out of my way to download that app, use that data and give my data to get that incentive. Right. If I can do that and I get a value exchange out of it, and I can get a real clear value exchange out of it because I know that it's a very specific one that I'm doing, people will do it. And the question is, like you said, do we have enough momentum to do it?
And do we have the people doing it, Raj? Sorry if I interrupt. It's a problem of getting the ones who hold the business models letting loose. So there's so much concentration.
And I think the other problem that we identified, which is this concept of a fake profile. Is there's no real way in the internet ecosystem to validate that Raj is who says who he is. You know, if you are, for example, in this reverse internet story, where a BMW is looking for 500 people to watch a video to see how effective that video will be, but they're looking for people that owned a German car before, that makes more than $100,000 a year, et cetera, and I'm going to pay you $150 to use that, to view that video. How do you validate that the people that apply actually do have own a German car? So you need external validation. So I think, you know, one of the things we need prior to this becoming mainstream is some way to kind of validate individuals on the internet, which brings privacy and security into play as well. So it's kind of like, you know, it's the chicken before the egg, and it's kind of that story. So, I mean, I think we'll get there. Interesting. But it's the things and challenges that people like Raj and myself will have to find automated solutions for, and that's where AI and ML will help. You know,
and we will find solutions aside of however the elections will develop. That privacy is a very important topic, and that is such important that Micro Focus had split up its company again. And that we will have cyber resilience or something like that as a name. And that department is selling all their cybersecurity stuff, especially also the one which is an OEM product for privacy and data privacy and encryption, which is from Switzerland and is a product based called Centraia. And I know this from firsthand. They have now their Las Vegas kickoffs and all that. And this is very, very interesting, because I believe that we will have less trouble in securing the privacy of the individual if we utilize that. We will keep out the NSA and all the bad guys, and Mossad as well. Yeah. And
consider them being the bad guys, by the way.
That's what I thought. He said NSA and the bad guys in the same line.
Homeland Security, General HCQ in Great Britain, which is also not on my friends list. But what I see is that there we will have a new challenge, such as if this is all encrypted, how do we get the data for our artificial intelligence systems out of this encrypted rubbish? So we have to have a new wave of willing customers which are sharing with us non-encrypted informations, which makes it for us readable, or get them into an audience where they share their secured keys with us. This is a new challenge.
This is an interesting one, because at Emarsys, we did something very interesting from a technological point of view. Let me try and help you with it. So one of the restrictions we have is we have a few German businesses who said they always want their data to be in private cloud, right? But they still also wanted the scale at which we can do the ML stuff, because the whole ML infrastructure is based in the Google Cloud. So what we did was the hybrid version of it, where you still have the private cloud information, and then we have the encryption keys across the public cloud, and then we do all the computation stuff on the public cloud. But then we also have a way for, in your case, is where we can do edge calculations. The edge calculations are when we have developed a model. All of the models can be deployed in edge devices. The edge devices could be anything. It could be just like a watch, or it could be just a phone, or things like that. The edge models are what is called as a cohesive models, which means whenever one of the models are learning, all the other models learn together as well, which is a really interesting way of doing it, because whenever you have a encryption happening, you can allow the customers to have a edge model living in your phone, for example, which is only specific for them, learning about that specific user, but also transmitting the information to the other models. So the technological barrier is not there. And that's what I'm trying to get to, because we have the way to to get around the problem with encryption and anonymized data sets and transfer learning. Even 3 years ago, transfer learning was a mind-boggling subject people couldn't understand. But now we've gone past that problem, and we can even have transfer learning using edge models. So I don't think the problem is that. The problem is the business transformation issue, right? We need more people who can help businesses transform, and that's where the issue is. Like, Emarsys is not a simple system. Emarsys is a powerful system. I'm sure Thunderhead is also a very powerful system. But the question is, how many businesses actually use Emarsys to the 100% effect? How many businesses use, platforms like Thunderhead to the 100% effect, or any other platform for that matter, right? The issue is that the number one problem is adoption, and everybody's completely covered it up, and nobody talks about it either. It's like the pink elephant in the room. Nobody actually talks about. So for me, when the adoption happens, you normally will hit a what I call as a plateau or a wall ceiling, and then for you to breach that, you need to do a business transformation. Every single time you hit a wall, you'll do a business transformation. And that's what we call as the maturity, right? Maturity curve has a path inside it. The more you transform, the more difficult it gets. But then when it gets difficult, that's when things like, machine learning will come into play, AI will come into play, and everything. When you are at a basic state, like a really basic state, and when you're only churning three content, like, I've had customers where they're only churning out 3 different types of content, but the machine learning models are churning out 1 million permutations and combinations. What are you going to do? It doesn't matter what calculations you do. You're only going to send those 3 stupid outputs to those 1 million customers. So there's no point. It's like taking a big Ferrari engine and sticking it into a two-wheeler or like a broken car. That's where the issue is. Everything has to be built ground up. Like, if you're building a sports car, if you're building an AI-based business, it has to be built ground up from the business with AI in mind, with AI in play, and that's where the issue is here.
And so are you with transition from mobile first to AI first?
Absolutely. I like the word AI first. Maybe we should use it. I'll steal it.
That will be the next state that I would see as well.
I don't want to take over the conversation, but I have an interesting question for Raj, and maybe Thomas, you and Ralf would appreciate it. When Bob Stutz was on the chat the other day talking about Emarsys, he said one of the things that stood out for him and why they acquired Emarsys was their approach to AI. Maybe I can ask Raj to explain why would Bob have said that, and what makes the approach at Emarsys so different, and in at least in Bob's mind, as to what he saw maybe in Einstein, or even I'm sure he was part of the Epic conversations earlier on. Why would he say that? What do you think, Raj, is what stands out in terms of your AI approach being so different and so valuable?
And I don't know what Bob thought, because I haven't spoken to him yet, but I can give you my opinion on it and how we do things differently. And to start with, I'll actually start with Hagai, who's our co-founder, and his thought process, right? The way he says is, don't treat AI like a separate thing. Think about it as like any other product we would develop. We wouldn't develop a product which is open-ended, right? You wouldn't develop an air conditioning machine without another sensor attached to it. You want a control loop system where, you have a sensor, you have something else working, it's all working in a closed loop system. And a simple example we do, and like, for example, the emails, we have a lot of customers who deploy emails, right? And I'm going to go to a very rudimentary example where customers came to us and said, when is the best time to send an email? We have thousands and thousands of experts, and I'm going to put it on quotes, experts, where they'll say, 10 o'clock Tuesday morning, best time, send it. I'm like, what? That is the worst thing to say. Like, it's the absolute worst thing to say. And the very next day, another consultant or analyst will come and say, Wednesday, 6 o'clock, perfect time, just send it. And then everybody will follow that. And then we had solutions where they said, okay, we will figure out when the last time they opened and let's send that email. And then they did segmentation. There's like hundreds and thousands of solutions out there, right? And none of it is perfect. So when we thought about helping our customers, we said, you know what? You don't have to pay for AI. You shouldn't be paying for AI because it's our job. It's our job to integrate AI in its basic form to help you do your job properly. Don't worry about segmenting or sending it on a Tuesday morning or a Wednesday morning or whatever it is, right? We will give you a button which actually gives us permission to send an email individually, one by one, which is very appropriate for every single user in your database, right? And we call it AI-based send time. It's as simple as that. And there is nothing attached to it. It's a small button where they just have to switch it on, and that's pretty much it. So we will do constant calculations in the back end where we are figuring out for each and every individual when's the best time to do it. And then what is also interesting is we also have what is called as a nearest neighbor, which basically figures out if I'm more likely to open 9 o'clock Monday morning, I will get it 9 o'clock Monday morning. If I get it, and if I'm more likely to open 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, I get it at 6 o'clock Tuesday evening, right? And that permutation and combination of millions of campaigns you do across your millions of customers was given away for free. We didn't charge them. It's built into the platform and nobody even knows that it exists. All we do is ask them for specific permission because GDPR suggests that you should do it. And I say suggest, it doesn't mandate, it suggests. So we basically say, give us permission to do this. And they go, yeah, okay, finish. Just click it, done. And then we take care of everything. And then we had customers come and say, no, this is wrong. We're like, don't worry, because we already have a testing platform which does everything for you. We do the statistical testing for them, statistical significance testing, and we constantly show them an output of how they are performing against a control group, right? And we do that automatically as well. I mean, for two things. One, we want to prove it to ourselves that the algorithm is learning and doing its right thing. Mm-hmm. The second thing is we also want the customers to see it for them to figure it out, right? And that's just a basic way of doing things. For us, it's more of an ethos rather than, oh yeah, we're AI experts. So it's not just an AI thing. I think for us, it's a business thing. If we can solve a business problem with the least amount of interaction from a customer, yes, we will do it. But then, coming back to the explainability, I'm going to come to that whole thing again, why I said that statement before. Customers say, why did you not send that on Monday morning at 10 o'clock? Just because you didn't send it on Monday morning, 10 o'clock, now I've lost like $10,000. Like, well, then the figures are showing that you haven't lost $10,000. It's like talking to like a person who just don't want to believe in it, right? And then we will ask them, say, yeah, switch it off. But going back to it, what is interesting is it's been a journey for us for the past 3 to 4 years where this has taken a lot of time for customers to believe in it, understand it. Some will say, I'm only going to do 30% of my customers. Some will say, I'm only going to deploy a few campaigns with AI. And slowly but surely, we are converting every single customer to use something like that, right? So I think that's probably what Bob must have felt, that he likes it.
So what is the learning cycle of your, let's say, your send time algorithm? Is it immediate if the email was sent and the person opened it, didn't open it? Or is it goal-based where, okay, it was sent and the person achieved the outcome that we behind the reason behind why we sent the email? Is it truly adaptive that is continuing to learn on the fly, or is it, consider after 10,000 send emails that the model has to be retrained? Just some interesting questions.
Yeah, we have an automated pipeline. Since we have 2,300 customers, none of it is manually tweaked. We can't afford to manually tweak it. It's just an impossible task for us to manually tweak it. All of the models are self-adapting models. All of them are self-learning models, and it's put on rails completely. Everything is done on a pipeline. It just works automatically. And going back to the question, saying, what is the time where it learns?
Interrupt for a second. This is an extremely fascinating discussion. Extremely.
You have to go.
Sorry that I need to interrupt, but I got a hard stop. I wasn't aware that we'll have that great a discussion. As I wouldn't have taken that appointment. So what I would suggest, so there are two options. I drop out and you continue with Ralf, who is more than perfectly capable of doing so, and I'll have the remainder of the discussion a little later by viewing it on YouTube, or we do this thing in a few weeks in this setting.
I think we can do this in a few weeks in the setting. I think it'd be good for you to be there and allow you to be participating, And I don't want to catch Raj off guard asking you detailed questions that he doesn't want to share. It's just because there's a topic of interest and, my background with Pegasus systems and Accordion and KAQ. Obviously, I'm deeply entrenched in understanding how these things work. And, so.
And I think that is a very fair approach in as you joined in and as an encouraged listener and spontaneous joiner was something which gave an extra kick and an extra value. And
really
what we share here is special, and we are doing this without analyst relations watchdogs or any people which are guiding us and are complaining, you're telling the wrong stuff. This is
looking for a new job tomorrow, then we made something wrong.
That's what I'm worried about now. I don't have a job tomorrow.
What you said, Raj, I'm going to tell him.
I had an expertise.
Although I might just do name dropping, so he might call you out positively. So
it might be very interesting if we take the approach Tom mentioned earlier to join in that conversation Esteban as well, or even so that we can directly discuss Raymond with Bob if he loves to join in for such a topic as well, because the beef is in that when it's getting into the less standardized approaches, and when it's get into not the prepared questions, but in the developing perspectives, such as what is a fair price for a customer's value, what is he going to pay in the future, and what is changing in the pandemic environment, and what can they still afford? So just to take these thoughts in a way.
Let's set up a larger conversation with some different stakeholders, especially a few non-SAP. You two are close, pretty much SAP. Yeah? Honoris causa. So
days I might be having a different logo on my shirt, so
Friend, I value very, very much that we had you today with us. Ray, a little short time in live and color, but perfectly present in our chat. Tom, go to your meeting, be on time. Gentlemen, I'm flashed. I'm flashed again, and it's such a fun, even after a very hard day, and believe me, it was a hard day, with a lot of video taking and funny questions by highly motivated employees, but absolutely unexperienced in front of camera to make them feel easy. Yeah, this here is fun.
Folks, I really need to drop.
Okay.
Thanks,
Bye, Thomas.
To both of you, Raj and
Bye, Raj. Bye, Ralf.
Ja.
See you next time.
Nächsten Dienstag sehen wir uns alle gesund wieder. Wir werden einiges zu diskutieren haben, was die Wahl angeht, meine Damen und Herren. Und wir freuen uns, dass die Erde sich auch in den nächsten Wochen noch drehen wird. Bleiben Sie gesund. Bleiben Sie uns gewogen. Wir wünschen Ihnen einen angenehmen Abend und Spaß. Ciao.
Ciao, Dankeschön.
Sehr, sehr gerne. Es war eine Freude.